11.1 Designing a Study. So this is where we're going to start looking at different studies when it comes to probability. The first thing I want us to talk about is whether you have a biased or non-biased sample. A bias is an error that results in a misrepresentation, of members of a population. And then next, you have a random sample. So a random sample is just you're choosing between different people, and it doesn't matter, age or whether they're male or female or high school, elementary, anything like that. There's just a random sample of people. So first, there's three different types I want to talk about. There's survey, experimental, and observational. So survey is when you're collecting data or something. Whenever I take a survey that you guys do for me, and I collect some type of data, that'll help me for that type of study. Next is experimental. So experimental is when you take a set of people and you divide them into two groups. You have an experimental group that undergoes a change and a controlled group that undergoes or that does not undergo that change. Okay, so and to see if that works. The last one is observational study. This is when members of a sample are measured or observed without being affected by the study. So it's just something you're looking at to see what's happening to them based on what research you're trying to do. So what's going to happen here is it wants you to determine if it's a survey or experimental or observational. So let's work on the first one. The scientist studies the behavior of one group of dogs given new heartworm treatment and the other group of dogs given a false treatment or a placebo. So whenever someone's given something that's false, a false treatment or a placebo, this is experimental. Okay, it also says identify the sample. So the sample would be the dogs. Okay, the dogs with heartworm. And suggest a population from which they've been selected. Okay, so the groups of dogs can be selected with heartworms. Okay, that's the type of group you want of dogs. Next one. The yearbook committee conducts a study to determine whether students would prefer to have a printed yearbook or both printed and digital. Okay, conducts a study, so this is a survey. Survey. When it talks about identify the sample would be a digital or a print yearbook. All right, a group of high school students is randomly selected and asked to complete the form. Okay, so again, when you're completing the form, this is survey. Number 2, an advertising company wants to test a new logo design. They randomly select 20 participants and watch them discuss the logo. This is observational. Okay, they have no control over what they're saying, and they're just going to observe them. Okay, let's do a couple more. A research company wants to study smokers and non-smokers to determine whether 10 years of smoking affects the lung capacity. So again, a research company wants to study. They're just seeing what they're doing. So this is observational. Okay, let's do one more. A national pet chain wants to know whether customers would pay a small annual fee to participate in a rewards program. They randomly select 200 customers and send them a questionnaire. So whenever you send someone a questionnaire, you're sending them or asking them to complete a survey. Okay, the next thing we want to go over is whether something is biased or unbiased. So in order to avoid survey questions, right? to avoid having a biased or unbiased opinion, there's a couple of things you want to have if you look up here in the bullet points. Some are confusing in wording, can cause a strong reaction. What you should do is you should encourage, or I'm sorry, you shouldn't encourage a certain response or address more than one issue. So you want to be, when conducting a survey, you want it obviously to be non-biased. You want them to answer based on what they think, not what they think you want them to say. So how many glasses of water do you drink a day? This is non-biased, not biased. Okay? That's just a very simple question. Okay, we're not making them feel like they need to drink 5 glasses of water. Do you drink 5 or more glasses of water a day? Because that's what the healthy thing to do. That would be more of a bias statement. Do you prefer watching exciting action movies or boring documentaries? This is bias. And the reason why is they describe it as exciting action or boring documentaries. That's what makes it biased. Next, which student council candidate platform do you support? This is non-biased. Not biased. They're just asking a question. Number 6, how long have you lived at your current address? Again, not biased. Very simple surface level questions. Okay, 11-2, distribution of data. So this is the bell curve that I was talking about in class. When coronavirus came out and they're saying you want to flatten the curve, and they showed you different types of curves that look like a bell. This is from where it's coming from. So when we're looking at this bell curve, there's all of the same curves, but they all look different, right? The first one we want to look at is a negatively skewed distribution. And the biggest thing to remember how it's negatively skewed is by looking at the tail, okay? So our tail is on the left side. It's on the left side of the median, okay? So when it's on the left side of the median, it's negatively skewed. When the tail is perfectly on both sides, the left and the right, it's symmetric. And then when the tail is on the right side, majority of the right, it's positively skewed. Again, right of the mean or the median. So basically when we're talking about the tail, remember when it's box and whisker, we were talking about the tails that are on the left and right side. Okay, this is the same type of tail. So bringing in the box and whisker graph, okay? So there's going to be 2 different graphs actually they talked about in this section. First, it's going to be box and whisker, and then it's going to be histogram. Let me go back up here really quick. All 3 of these bell curves that you see, these are all called a histogram graph. And you can find this in your calculator. I'm going to show you where to get it. Actually, it's the same place where you did your box and whisker. So the histogram graphs, we can create on our calculator. And let's go to box and whisker, okay? We've already done box and whisker last section, but I just want to make sure that we're able to name when it's negatively, symmetric, and positive. Again, it's all about the tail. So here, the tail is longer on the left side, which makes it a negatively skewed graph. And when the tail is heavier on the right side, when more of the data is on the right side of your average or your median, it's positively skewed. Okay, so going to this example here, the amount of time that James ran on a treadmill. If you go and plug all this into your calculator like you did to get the 5-number summary, okay, that's the first thing I want you guys to get, is get that 5-number summary. Once you get that 5-number summary, okay, if you go to second, y equals. This is where it helps you turn on your stat plot, right? So you're going stat plot. So you're going to turn it on, and then you're going to go to the type. Okay, and you're going to move your arrow button over to the right, and you're going to use the box and whisker, which is the bottom middle. Okay. Also, if you so the bottom middle is your box and whisker. Okay. And your top right one is your histogram. So you can use either one of those. Now, if you use your histogram, once you put in all this information about exercise, you will get the negatively skewed one that you see on the screen right now. Okay, it's negatively skewed because more of the data is on the left-hand side. Rarely will I make you draw a histogram graph. I'll make you always draw the box and whisker. Okay. Now, if we go to, so let me go back up here. So all it says is using the graph of the histogram, then describe the shape of the distribution. So once you saw this, this was a negatively skewed graph. Okay. And then it says describe the center and the spread of the data using either the mean or the median. So to describe the center, right, you would say for this one, I'm changing my color. So describe the center and the spread of the data using the mean. Okay, so since it's negatively skewed, right? Okay, our tail is more to the left-hand side. So you would say that the majority of the data is on the left side of the mean. Okay. Now, it says you can do standard deviation. We're not going to do standard deviation. I want you always to do the 5-number summary because that's what we're used to doing. Okay. The question we do we'll look at the most on from this section is comparing two histograms, okay? But what's going to end up happening, see it says in A, use your calculator to create a histogram for each data set, then describe the shape. Okay, I would recommend you don't do the histogram. I'm going to ask if you guys do the box and whisker. Okay, and the reason why is it's easier to see a box and whisker. So the third period, once you plug all that data in, I'm going to draw it for you. So this is third period. And then our sixth period looks like this. Okay, once you see these two, okay, so again, this will be, you want this one to be L1 and this one to be L2, which also corresponds with Y1 and Y2 when you go and graph them. So it says use them to create these two. Okay, now compare the distributions using the means of standard deviation or the 5-number summary. So again, we want the 5-number summary. Okay, and when you look at the 5-number summary, you're going to compare the means. Okay, and it's basically saying we can see that the third period is negatively skewed and sixth period is positively skewed. Okay, so that's a comparison. Right? You can compare the means. You can compare the average. This question is very open-ended. Normally, what I like to see definitely is talking about the skews. Which one is negatively skewed or positively skewed? Okay. So we'll definitely go over more of these in classwork. And this is the lessons for today.